This weekend is UFC Des Moines, Iowa. Now, this video is going to be very short. I'm just giving my picks, my predictions for the main event and co-main event. Let's start off with the main event. So, Cory Sandhagen versus Figgy. Um, I think quite a few people are picking Sandhagen, and by the way, myself included. I don't want Sandhagen to win. Let me be very clear. I would be much happier with a Figgy win. I think that's cool, but if I'm making a prediction, I think that Cory Sandhagen is going to win. You're not going to get an analytical, technical breakdown from me. I'm going to base my pick straight off of vibes. Straight off of the brain of a casual, an unathletic casual brain. This is the perspective you're getting today. So when I rewatch the Song Yadong fight in particular, what I see from Cory Sandhagen, not just these elbows that he throws as a shorter opponent is coming in, but he was also able to really hold Song Yadong down for a while. He did some good wrestling. And obviously we saw him mix up his wrestling, particularly in the Rob Font fight. And I just think for reasons like that Figgy, obviously we see here the much shorter opponent, that's going to cause real issues for him. I think the reach, Sandhagen really, like him or hate him, he's really good at utilizing that reach. Now, Figgy does have something which the power difference between these two is astonishing. Like, Figgy has the power advantage over Sandhagen. That's not even a question. What was really interesting about Figgy is, though, that he wasn't able to KO Cody Garbrandt, a really chinnable fighter, but he was able to rock Cheeto. I think he was the first fighter to drop Cheeto, actually officially, like, drop Cheeto Vera in a fight. And that's really impressive. That's an amazing accomplishment to have on your resume. But when I watch Sandhagen fights and Figgy fights, I see Sandhagen really, really does some of his best work when the opponent is shorter than him. All right, I think Sandhagen would struggle with someone like Sean O'Malley. I do think that because they're the same height. But yeah, I see highlight. This was something that really stuck out to me was when he has a shorter opponent. And by the way, I think Song Yadong might be physically stronger and harder to hold down and take down than Figgy most of the time. Figgy had that advantage in flyweight. He had he benefited from that a lot as a flyweight. He had the bigger frame and all that. But against Sandhagen has worked on his wrestling really well. And now I sound like a broken record. But the Rob Font fight, I think he injured his hand really early in the fight or somewhere in the second round. And that's why he really made a wrestling heavy game plan for the rest of that fight. But he has that. The fact that he has that in his toolbox is not good for someone like Figgy, who doesn't really do well with a taller, lankier wrestler, as though we've seen. Obviously, Figgy's only lost one time in the bantamweight, and it was against Piotr Jan. And yeah, Piotr Jan is a much more accurate striker than Cory. But I don't know. Cory's just a vicious motherfucker, though. And I think when Cory, mixes up the takedowns, the elbows, and all that, it's just going to be hell for Figueiredo, for the smaller, shorter dude. Because Sandhagen is good at getting in and out. When he hurts you, he's so good at getting out of the way, too. I think that's kind of underrated from him. All right, co-main event. So, I want RDR to win. I don't care for either of these fighters too much, but definitely am pretty, like many people, kind of tired of Bo. The fact that he's this industry plant, the UFC has been shoving him down our throats. I don't deny that he's good. All right? I'm sure he's excited. In fact, I think if he just approaches this fight like he did the Val Woodburn fight, he might actually win. But, I think De Ridder has that really weird, funky, we always see it. It seems like De Ridder shouldn't win, but he wins. It's so fucking weird. Anyway, I think De Ridder is gonna, he's gonna get Bo going for really aggressive takedowns, and I think De Ridder might get slammed. I think he will get slammed a couple times, but I think, when he gets taken down, De Ridder tends to find those really good submissions when he's being taken down, a little bit like Oliveira. Not anywhere as clean and cool as Oliveira, but De Ridder gets it done somehow. I'm trying to give a final of how this fight is gonna end. Sadly, I guess if I was, fuck it. I'm gonna pick De Ridder. I pick RDR. Not just because I want him to win, but I do think that it's not a good matchup because I also think about the Paul Craig fight and how, Bo was not, excited to go to the ground with it. We remember that fight. You know, maybe it was because Bo wanted to have experience on feet, fighting, striking more as, his bread and butter is wrestling. Maybe he wanted to strike on the feet with Paul Craig. But you didn't do that well against Paul Craig on the feet, dude. I think it's a little bit of a red flag that he didn't want to grapple with Paul Craig because that I don't think Paul Craig's jiu-jitsu is very, very, scary. It's really good, but I don't know if it's as good as RDR though. I don't know, and I'm gonna pick RDR against Bo Nickel. All right, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, and comment who you think is gonna win the co-main and main event in UFC Des Moines, Iowa this Saturday.